You're listening to the Intellectual Beats podcast, where our focus is elevating conversations. I'm your host, Shayla Kirkendall. Well, hello there. I am so glad to be back before you, and this time with a guest on my show. So today we are going to be having a conversation with Stephanie Bright. Stephanie Bright is the founder of Christian Girls Pop, an online international women's ministry. Now, we actually had this conversation back in 2022. The crazy thing is, the conversation that we had then is still relevant today and even meets me right where I am. And so because of this, I believe that the conversation that we had will also meet you where you are at in your life. Today, we're going to be talking about Stephanie's input on purpose, obedience, and prayer, which is actually the mission behind her ministry. While attending college, Stephanie began leading Bible studies from her dorm room, which led to the birth of Christian Girls Pop. Through Christian Girls Pop, Stephanie can reach women across the world of all ages to proclaim the Word of God in a relevant way. As a Bible teacher, she uses her life experiences to help others realize their potential by highlighting scripture in a unique way. Stephanie aspires to bring Christian Girls Pop to college campuses worldwide to guide young women into a meaningful relationship with Christ. Stephanie also enjoys leading worship, spending time with her younger siblings, and doing puzzles in her free time. And one last thing, and I'll talk about this more later on, but Stephanie also just ventured back to Angola for her second mission trip. I know, y'all, it's exciting. God is truly, He has her on the move, huh? So again, in this episode, we are going to explore the many facets of Stephanie's online ministry while bridging the gap to give you a look at where she is now and what she has done since our initial conversation back in 2022. So let's get into this conversation. Stephanie, thank you so much for taking the time out to speak with me. I am so excited about the conversation we will be having today. So, I just want to dive in here a little bit. Tell us about Christian Girls Pop. What was the inspiration behind you making that decision to start your own online ministry?
Yeah, so Christian Girls Pop is a online women's ministry now, but that's not how it started. It started back in 2015. My mentor at the time, she suggested to me that I decide to begin doing Bible studies on the college campus that I was attending, and I absolutely was not on board at all. And it didn't make sense to her because I'm a preacher's kid, like growing up in church. She was like, Steph, like, I'm telling you, you should go pray about it. The Lord had already basically told her, like, this is something she should do. And so she told me, and I was like, okay, I guess I'll go pray about it. Long story short, ended up realizing that it was from the Lord. And then I began it in 2015, which was going into my sophomore year of college. And so I just started with the girls that I knew, friends that I had. I was working in the dorms there. And so I was able to meet different girls. And so with that, I just started inviting them to the Bible study. And then I did that for the next 3 years while I was there at HBU, which is where I went to college. And so then from there, I was like, okay, cool. I guess I'm done. That was a great thing that I did while I was in college. And then the Lord was really showing me through His word, through confirmations, through others, that this was something that needed to continue after college and not just be for the Bible study girls at the time. He wanted me to make it where anyone could access it, to where anyone would be able to access it and be a part. And so that's when I launched online in October of 2018. And we've been rocking with that ever since. So yeah, that's a little bit of backstory there.
No, that's incredible. And yes, HBU, Houston Baptist University, me and Stephanie are both alums. So go Huskies.
Yep, dogs up.
Yes. But you know what? On that note, HBU, it is a, Christian institution, Christian university. You mentioned that you started with the girls that you knew on campus. So starting from the girls you knew on campus and then being able to bring others into like the fold. How was that process like? Was it easy? Did you just have to market yourselves in order to have other people to be aware that you were creating this Bible study on campus?
So the word just kind of spread on its own. It was never this really big Bible study, which was totally fine. It gave me a lot of space to have those intimate relationships with the girls and be able to get them to where they needed to be spiritually, because we were working more one-on-one and I was able to get to know them on a deeper level. But a lot of it was just from the girls inviting their friends or people that I knew that I would meet in class and just make connections with. And so the Bible study never had a name. The entire time that I was there at HBU, it never had a name. It was just, hey, I have a girls' Bible study. If you want to come, you can. And a lot of times we didn't even have a designated place to do the Bible studies. So I would have a group chat with the girls, and each week they just had to just kind of be ready for anything. So I would let them know, hey, I found some space in the laundry room. I found some space in the conference room. This is where we're going to meet. And I would just go like an hour or so early and just kind of mark my territory a little bit. And so that's how we were able to make it happen each week until the final year. I had an apartment on campus, and so the girls would come there, but we just made it work. I never had a big, fancy name or anything for it. It was just, hey, or if girls were inviting their friends, they were just like, hey, my friend has a Bible study. Like, you should come with me. So yeah, that's what it was.
I love that. And I love how you emphasize it started out with just having these intimate relationships, these intimate conversations. And that is what ultimately captured people, made them want to stay and just, being connected to you and the others that are also in the group. So I think that's precious. The last time I looked, Christian Girls Pop has over 19,000 members in your Facebook, your private Facebook group. And that's just incredible. How did you think you were able to maintain this, strong community for Christian girls? Because again, I think it definitely was through those intimate relationships with people, but do you think something else helped to keep them wanting to stay in the group?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say two things. The first thing is remembering my why and always just having the passion for those women always at the forefront of what I do. It's always bringing me back to when it was just us in the apartment and wanting to foster that environment and keep that community going, even if it was on a larger scale. Community is part of our mission statement for Christian Girls Pop, and it's a very big part of my own spiritual journey, how I've experienced Christ, how I've seen Christ move through his people. And I wanted to make sure that Christian Girls Pop was that quote unquote safe space for other girls. And so no matter if we're in an apartment or if we're across the globe, I want to still have that space for those women. And so that was one of my big whys of why I do what I do. The biggest thing besides that, I would just say, is consistency. I always say that a lot of people have a lot of great ideas. They have a lot of passions and talents and hobbies and even callings that God has put on their life. But without consistency, I don't think we get to see a lot of what God has for us. And so it's just been a matter of just continuing to show up. There's been events that no one's come to. There's been times when it seems like, you're just doing things and like no one's even really responding, but just still showing up for just the one, and knowing that at the end of the day, if you're doing what God is calling you to do, like, it will flourish in whatever that looks like in his eyes, not in our own. And so just continuing to show up, continuing to create content and keep that safe space for the girls, and to just let them know, like, hey, I'm here for you. There's other women that are in this group that are also here for you too. And just, I love to see the growth of the group, not just for the numbers, but knowing that there are potentially lives all over the world that are being able to be affected, and relationships with Christ that are being deepened and strengthened because of Christian Girls Pop being here for them.
Yes, love it, love it, love it. And I'm so glad you were willing to take the step and be obedient when someone kind of encouraged you to move on that thing that to lead other women to Christ, essentially. So Christian Girls Pop, the pop stands for purpose, obedience, and prayer. So yes, again, I'm glad that you took the step to do so. Let's talk about this a little bit. Within the group, you share your testimony with others. How has the testimonies of others shaped you when people respond in the group to things that they have been going through, or also just being able to respond to your testimony? How have those shaped you?
Yeah, I, along with community, vulnerability, and transparency are also really big factors. And I think they go hand in hand a lot of times. And going back to the apartment days, going back to the college days when we did have those one-on-one, face-to-face Bible studies, I remember seeing how me being able to share my testimony would affect others, and seeing how they realize that, hey, I'm not alone. Someone else has gone through this. And my testimony hits a lot of different areas of just different sins, different struggles. And so with that, there's a lot of reach, I guess. Everyone can kind of relate in some form or fashion. And so I remember going back to the apartment days. I remember specific conversations. I remember it like it was yesterday, of different nights when I would share different parts of my story, and how I would stay after with these women, maybe just one or two, but we would stay for a couple hours, just letting them finally share what they have been holding on to for years and never being able to talk about, because just as I once thought, they thought I'm the only one that goes through this. So I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to share. And so I want to keep that up. And it's not that even people may even respond or send me a message like, hey, that really resonated with me. I get that too. But just knowing that me just simply sharing my story will exalt God. It will exalt the power of what he can do in someone's life and how he can transform that. And whether they ever reach out and tell me or not, like, I believe that they will just have the strength to know that they're not alone. And so that fuels me to continue to share my story, even if it can be taboo, even if there's parts that are like, man, girl, that was a hot mess, even with all of that, like I still want to share that, because one, that's not who I am anymore. Two, I get to really just exemplify the miracle working power of God. And three, it gives hope to someone else that they're not in this alone.
Yes, yes, you are not alone. Love that. Love that. Speaking on that note, the pandemic, it was a time of isolation for a lot of people. Um, I think during that time, people truly could flock to a group such as yours to be able to share things that were on their heart, whether that's needing prayer or just needing encouragement, because again, we're so isolated from each other. I kind of want to get your take on this. So because people were isolated during that time, were you able to see maybe an increase in Christian Girls Pop within the Facebook group because of that? Or how are the numbers affected during that time?
Um, I'm really bad with numbers. I'll start with that. I have people on my team that they'll kind of give me the numbers, and I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I've never been one to focus on the numbers. And so I did, even though I'm not super big into the numbers, I did notice that that was a year of growth overall. I couldn't quote it exactly, but I do remember not even so much the numbers as far as growth, but the engagement, because a lot of people were at home. There was nothing else to do. So they're like, oh, let's see what this is about. But also, along with that, a lot of people were so lonely and isolated in their homes that they were desperate to find some space where they could have some sort of interaction with people. Like, I don't think we really realize how much we need human interaction until we don't get it. And we're like, man, like, even the most introverted of people, like, you need something at some point. And so I remember just seeing the different posts as far as women just looking for other women, like, hey, I know we can't meet up. Anybody want to do virtual Bible studies, or if they want to just find friends, they were looking for anything they could. And so that was good to have that space. I was still, working as in the healthcare field at the time. So that was a crazy time too, trying to balance both of those and make sure people have what they needed, but also, serving the community from the healthcare perspective. So that was a crazy time for all of us, but I am glad that Christian Girls Pop was there. And, it's still there for different seasons of people's lives.
Definitely, definitely. And that's the key thing, seasons in our lives, because some seasons we may have to glean and lean on each other more. Some seasons we may be okay standing on our own, but we still need that connection with each other. So I love how you put that into words. And as you mentioned earlier, sometimes it's not necessarily about the numbers of people, but it's just being able to know that you made a difference in someone's
Right.
life and brought them to Christ. I want to touch on one note. You mentioned you were working in the healthcare industry around the pandemic. I believe since that time you have transitioned a little bit more into being full time with Christian Girls Pop. How has that transition been for you?
Yeah. So that is pretty fresh overall, the decision and stuff. I officially left nursing in the end of February of this year. And so it's just been a little bit shy of 7 months. And so with that, it's been a transition. That's the easiest way to put it. It was interesting. Obviously, it was a very big decision to leave my career, but I knew that God had called me to really pursue ministry and Christian Girls Pop full time. And I saw his hand and all of that as I transitioned. And so I'm grateful for that. Since then, it's been a dream to be able to have a lot more time dedicated towards Christian Girls Pop. For the last 6 out of 7 years of doing this, I've been doing something else along with Christian Girls Pop. I was either in school, in nursing school, or working as a nurse, or working two jobs as a nurse and balancing it all. And so now to be able to pull back from a lot of those things and be able to have more time devoted there, I love that so much. And so as with any transition, there's been just different things that I've had to adjust to. But I definitely love where God has me now, being able to really step into this. And it's just so funny because 7 years ago when this first started, I would have never imagined that the college that I was going to school for to pursue nursing, that I would one day be leaving all that behind in order to do this full time. But I don't regret it at all. It was such an amazing decision. And it has just really just shifted things in my life. And I'm excited to see what's ahead now that I am doing this full time.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that. And let's talk about some things that are ahead. So I know last year, I believe, was the first Selah retreats that you held with Christian Girls Pop. I believe coming up soon, you will be launching another retreat. Tell us about the Selah retreats. What are they all about?
Yeah, so yeah, we had the first one in April and it was super awesome. And so Selah just simply means pause or praise. And it's a time of rest. A lot of times we see it in the Psalms, and it's actually normally used as like a musical term in between songs or hymns that are written as a way to give you a pause before you go to the next thing. And so it's a time for you to kind of soak in what you just heard or what you just sang and process that basically before you move on to the next thing. And so the Lord gave me this vision for these retreats actually last year in 2021. And it's simply a space of rest in his presence. And it was amazing to have that in April when we had our first one. The seasons that people were in of just needing to just pull away from everything. And a lot of us can definitely know that, we can definitely relate to that and say like, yeah, I should pull back. I am pulled in a lot of different directions and I need to just really just sit and be with the Lord. And so there's something so special about having that space uninterrupted where you know that you're going in specifically for that thing. It's not like, oh, we're having a girls' time. I tell people that from the beginning. This isn't just your basic little girls' trip. Yes, we're going to have fun and we're going to do quote unquote girls things, but it's really a spiritual retreat to really focus on God. And so with that, we had worship sessions, preachings, rest time, prayer time, just a lot of time for you to be able to really have some one-on-ones with God too. A lot of times we don't get that as often as we should either. So that's the goal of each Selah retreat. And as you mentioned, yes, I have one coming up in October, and I will continue to have them twice a year from here on out. And so it's just a amazing weekend to not only be with God, but to be with other women who are also pursuing God and wanting to be in relationship with him and just have that space with him too.
Let's take a moment to pause here and think about that. When was the last time you paused and really focused on God in an uninterrupted fashion, like amidst the many things that's before us? Another way I could ask you this is, what do you do to activate rest and tap into God's presence? Like resting in his presence so that you can have peace and so that you can have clarity to move about what God needs you to do in life. Do you have a routine, and have you been intentional about creating a space that is reserved for your time with God? Listen, I'll be honest. There are certain seasons and times in my life where I can think back to how I was more focused and more intentional about tapping into the Holy Spirit and being more consistent with my alone time with God. But life happens, right? And when it does start to happen, you have to find a way to get back on track and get back on track to seeking the Lord. I can say that I honestly find myself now in a season of recovery, and so now I'm trying to use my mornings to pray more and to focus on God so that it can help set the tone for the day. But listen, just to remind you, this conversation I had with Stephanie was back in 2022. We recorded this around September or October of that year, but it still holds true today. So I like how she emphasized that the retreat was going to be about really just getting into God's presence, because there are so many opportunities around us that we could use to refresh ourselves. But if we're not careful, those opportunities can still leave us depleted, right? Like the many conferences that we go to, and again, some retreats, but depending on the intention around them, they may not allow us to gain spiritual rest. So I want you to think about that also, because I try to do this my own self. Whatever retreat or whatever conference I make the decision to go to, I try to make sure it's going to match what I'm really needing, right? Because at the end of the day, sometimes sometimes we're really just seeking a spiritual rest. So wherever you choose to go, what is most important for you? For me, it has always been about finding a place, if I choose to go to a retreat, that is going to reaffirm or reestablish peace. So, with that being said, let's get back to the episode and hear more about the Selah retreats that Stephanie hosts, and to hear about the theme behind the fall 2022 retreat. What are you looking forward to the next Selah retreat?
So with this one, I am very excited because there's a specific theme as we're going into the fall season. And so this one is called Rest in Change. And so the Lord just showed me that a lot of people that will come to this retreat will have a lot of transitions in their lives. So there are things that they're really trying to navigate. And so this will be a space to provide them the rest that they're needing in God, but also give them that clarity and wisdom on how to move forward with that transition. And myself, I've been a lot of transition in this past year. And so I'm excited to be able to use what this year has looked like for me, to be able to encourage others, uplift them, and to see what God will do through their transition as well.
That's awesome. And I love that the retreats are so focused on pausing, taking a moment. We live in a day and age that is about, hustle and bustle, go, go, go. And, not having that time to stop and pause can keep us distracted and not allow us to hear from God. And so
Yeah.
that intentionality behind the retreats, I think, is something that people can really look forward to.
I absolutely agree. This society is not focused on rest. We need to be like the Europeans and just like have siestas every day. Like I need to be on their level. But for our society, rest is so countercultural. And because of that, we don't take time to rest physically or spiritually. And both parts of our being, our existence, suffer because of that. And so I am excited that Selah retreats are able to provide that space. And we really don't know how much we're missing out on and how much God is wanting to share with us, but we just don't take time to stop and hear. And so I'm grateful that we have these retreats to be able to just chill out for a little bit and be able to focus on what really matters, which is our relationship with God.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I want to go back to one note, making the transition out of your job to pursue Christian Girls Pop was a leap of faith to be able to do so. So when you look back at your online ministry and how it started, and you look at it now, you mentioned you have no regrets. But what do you think about now, since you did make this decision to fully just pursue the ministry and really just listen to the person who told you to go ahead and do it? What is your thoughts on that now when you reflect on it?
Yeah, so there's a couple different thoughts. The first one is it's crazy that I left it behind. Not in a regretful way, but like, wow, like I think when I say that, I mean, like, it's crazy that that was even part of my life because of how different things are now. I can half the time I barely remember that I was a nurse until someone reminds me. I mean, still legally I am a nurse, but I'm not a working nurse. And it was such a big decision. Obviously, people had their differing opinions about that. But for me, I knew that that's what God had called me to do, and I knew that I needed to be obedient to that. And so I'm so grateful for that time in my life. I'm interested to see what God does with just my nursing license moving forward and how I can use the knowledge that I've acquired over the years for different things that He has called me to for the future. So I'm so grateful that I was able to experience such a variety of things just in my several years of being a nurse. I was a nurse for 4 years, but I was working two jobs during those times, both specialized jobs. And so I was learning a lot, being able to really work with specialized training, specialized patients. And so with that, I have a unique set of experience and skills. And so
Wait, did you catch that? Let that sink in. Stephanie's skill set and journey essentially prepared her for the doors that God would take her through later. Isn't it amazing how God will use past experiences later on in life? Like, we truly serve an intentional God. Stephanie first made her mission trip to Angola, Africa in September 2025, and then later returned this past March for long term mission work. While she is there, she will be providing spiritual education and discipleship along with medical services. If you would like to learn more about how to support Stephanie while she is in Angola, visit stephaniebright.com/missions. This will give you the opportunity to subscribe to her newsletter and follow her ministry. And if the Spirit leads you, you can also partner with Stephanie to donate towards her mission via that same website. Before we get back into the episode, I want to say that so many times we encounter full circle moments or do not realize that the journey God has us on is leading us to a purpose that will be unveiled later down the road. And that is why it is so important to be obedient and even faithful to what God is doing in our lives, right? Being obedient to what God is instructing us to do, because every single move or place that God positions us to or sits us in, it's often leading us to a greater purpose and a plan that He has for our lives.
like I said, just so grateful that God allowed me to have that season of my life. But also with that now, it's also knowing that that was a chapter in my life. God has flipped the page. We're on to something new. And so if I'm looking back, it's to reflect and to just think of fun memories and different things that I learned versus looking back and I guess regretting my decision or looking back and wishing I was still there. No, that's not where I'm at all. It's just knowing that this is where God has me now. I'm excited for where we're going and even for just what I'm doing now. And so I love that God is the orchestrator of all things, that He is, we call Him Alpha and Omega. So He is all the things that we need Him to be, beginning and end. And I like to say, and He's in the middle too. So I'm glad that He's writing the story. And so I'm excited to just see what the next 7+ years hold.
And on that note, I want to pause here and highlight a book that Stephanie has written. In October 2024, Stephanie published her first book entitled Rewritten, which provides 24 opportunities for transformation. Okay, so this is her book here. This book can be purchased on Amazon as well as her website, stephaniebright.com/shop. I'm just going to read a couple of things here from her book, okay? This is an interactive book that is designed for readers to encounter Jesus and the power of his transforming power through the testimony experiences of Stephanie. So this book is written to remind you that no one is too far gone. No story is too beyond repair. No plot is too messy or complicated. No experience is too beyond God. Your story can be rewritten into something so beautiful that no man has seen or heard. Give him the pen. And so that's taken directly from Stephanie's book. I'm reading the back of it. But yeah, so Stephanie is sharing her powerful testimony in so many different ways. So again, to help you to understand that you're not alone in this and that your story can be rewritten. As Stephanie was talking about basically stepping out and venturing into kind of like a new thing, leaving a job to pursue what she felt like God was calling her into. It's definitely about obedience, right? And I can say again, I've been there in my life. I find myself there now, and you may be too. Around page 34 in the book, Stephanie does a great breakdown of talking about obedience. In fact, she talks about different biblical characters and how they chose to walk in obedience. And there's a familiar scripture that she mentions, which is Isaiah chapter 1, verses 19, that talks about, if you are willing and obedient, you shall eat the good of the land. If you haven't done so, feel free to chime in the comments a struggle or where God is challenging you in your faith walk to step into obedience. I pray it can encourage others also. Again, so much even more in that section in the book. But if again, I would encourage you to purchase this book. You can purchase it again on Amazon or even stephaniebright.com/shop. There's a version also available in Spanish. Stephanie, when she's preaching, she also delivers the word of God also in Spanish. So she has a Spanish and English version. So I would encourage you to pick this book up. But again, hearing her testimony, hearing her talk about basically launching out into the deep, right? I'm walking into something that God is calling me into, and just knowing I have to do so to be obedient. I'm going to say something that you probably have heard before. So many times our yes to God, other people are depending on that. When we begin to walk into what God is calling us, it helps other people to be able to then walk into what God is calling them. And it's like this chain reaction. So, and also our yes helps bring people to the Lord a lot of times. So I thank God that Stephanie was obedient and launched out and did what God called her to do. Again, that was her word in 2022. And again, since then, she has written this book and is continuing to pursue what God is telling her to do. Let's get back into the episode. Yes, I'm excited for you, Stephanie. And I recently saw that you celebrated having 500,000 downloads on the Christian Girls Pop podcast. How does that feel? How does that feel?
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome. Once again, I'm not a numbers person, and I've just never been that person, but also I make sure to not get so caught up in that, because then I'm in it for the wrong reasons and I have the wrong motive. But it is nice to just stop and, celebrate those type of things, those milestones, I guess you could say. I love that people have stuck around and had me playing in their car or in the kitchen or whenever they're working out, or whenever they choose to listen to the podcast. It goes back to the consistency thing that I mentioned earlier on in our conversation. It's just been a matter of showing up every week. And just sharing what God has given me to share. There's been a lot of times when I was recording these episodes after night shift, so I probably sound a little tired in some of them. But I mean, I've had to record some in my car because of just how crazy life is. Like, there's been times when things were not going the way that they should. I've had to re-record episodes because they deleted, or anyone that does podcasts know the struggle. But it's just been a matter of showing up. And even with that, I show up and I just let God do the rest. And my main thing is I just want to be a good steward of whatever he gives me, whether it's 500,000, 5 million, whatever it is. I want to be a good steward over it. And so that means really just continuing to have the discipline to continue to show up and share, and knowing that there are people that are listening. There are people that are needing this. And, sometimes we can have an idea or something and we can think, oh, well, someone else is already doing it. Like, there's like a bajillion podcasts out there. And so, I could have easily been like, well, what's another one, but there's people around the world that have been listening and tuning in, and they needed to hear what I had to say because that's how God ordained it. And so it's just a matter of trusting him, knowing that he knows best. And so I'm just along for the ride. That's what I tell people.
Well, hey, I am along for the ride. I hope all of our listeners, our viewers, are also going to be able to really engage with Christian Girls Pop and everything that you are doing on that platform. So tell us, how can we stay connected with Christian Girls Pop?
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways. We're on Facebook and Instagram with the username or handle Christian Girls Pop, and that's POP. You also can check out our website, christiangirlspop.com. That has all the information of who we are, what we do, our goals as a ministry. You get to know a little bit more about me. And so that's all available on the website. That's also where you can look at our latest events and book tickets to those things. Also, our YouTube channel, you can just search up Christian Girls Pop and we're on there as well. And then last but not least, we're on every major platform for podcast streaming. And the title of the podcast is Christian Girls Pop.
All right, everybody, you heard it here from the founder, the CEO of Christian Girls Pop, Stephanie Bright. Stephanie, thank you so much for taking the time out to speak with me. I truly wish Christian Girls Pop the best. I wish you the best, and I hope you have a blessed one.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. It was fun in our conversation, and thanks for letting me talk a little bit about what God is doing here at Christian Girls Pop.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wishing you the best.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us this week on Intellectual Beats. Did you enjoy the conversation? Follow us on Facebook and Instagram and let us know what you thought about this episode. You can also visit our website at intellectualbeats.com for more content. Don't forget to subscribe, review, and rate this podcast so we can continue bringing you content that will engage, uplift, and challenge you to make an impact in your everyday life.